Hello, listeners. Welcome back to Views on Health after a lapse of a week. And as promised, we have Professor Pujitha Wickremasinghe, Senior Professor in Pediatrics, Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo, and Consultant Pediatrician, Lady Ridgeway Hospital, back with us on the program, having shared his expert views on COVID and its impact on children on the program last week. We're continuing on the same topic this week too, because it's very vast. There's so much that he can advise us on. So whilst welcoming you back to the program, Professor, may I please ask you for a start to recap on what you shared with us last week, and then focus on COVID and its impact on children from 5 years onwards.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, as I said last week also, what is important is that COVID has an impact as an illness for children. But of course, as I said, it is not as grave or severe as in adults. And most of them will get a mild illness and they will recover. So parents should be aware of these illnesses that they occur to their children. And of course, within about 48 hours, if things are not resolved, better to get the medical advice. But of course, the large impact is that they have lost their social interaction, their ability to interact with the society, to gain skills that they used to get from the school, things like that. And this, of course, as you said, it has affected the primary or the preschool children much more to a great extent than the older age. And actually, depending on the age, the problems that they would face, not directly related to the infection, but to the circumstances that the pandemic has led, would be quite different. So if we really look at the preschool child, that is actually, some people say early childhood or whatever, from about 2 years to 5 years before they go to school, formal school, this is one of the biggest periods in their lives that they gain new skills. The skills may be using their hands, maybe playing, like moving their main muscle groups, then of course talking and relating incidents and storytelling, that type of skills. All those things are now being hampered because they are not being able to get this formal education that they used to get, mainly in the play groups or in the preschool. Now, in order to that, in response, actually, the impact would be these are the areas where they develop these skills, especially the hand movements, how their fingers would move, how can they do delicate functions, then their language skill development, all these things. Now, what is the solution for this? I mean, people will think, okay, online teaching is a solution, but of course that is not going to be the main solution for this. Now, parents have a bigger role to play, that apart from the normal caregiver's role, the parents have to be their first teachers to a great extent. Anyway, we know that the parents were their first teachers, but now their role has broadened to a great extent, where most of these skills that they used to learn through the third party or the preschool teacher have to be now fed by the parents. What do they have to do actually? Now, most of the time, sometimes the parents think that it is important that we provide the knowledge to these children, and they keep on teaching the letters, they keep on teaching the figures, all these things. But actually, as I said in the previous program also, they have to have a lot of interactions in their brains. They have to develop new connections within their brain. For that, we have to keep on providing them with a lot of new information through especially the 5 senses. And this age, the main senses that they would work is the eye as well as the ear. So, and then of course, to some extent with their smell also. So I think most of the parents would have the ability to provide these senses. So actually the easiest way to do this is that the parents can get hold of these children and get them to help them in day-to-day normal household chores. Now, for example, even when they bring the fruits and vegetables, you can give these children to sort them out. They will learn very big lot of things. Then even lumping and putting them into a bag, storing them. So these type of things. Then of course cleaning the garden, going and showing the plants, and sort of to teach them how to care for these things. Because those things will actually help the children to develop their fingers, their eye-hand coordination, all that. Because we have a tendency to say, okay, children will get hurt and we don't send. But of course, I think now that again the time has come where we should cherish the good old things, habits which we had, going into the garden, looking after the plants, seeing how they are growing, and all those things. So that will of course give a very good insight into the environment they have. And also I hope this generation will begin to love again the environment to a great extent, because they have been living in that. So I think the parents should do this to a great extent. And I think very soon there would be a television network coming from the Ministry of Education through their auspices, where the parents would be empowered how to teach their children, their preschool child, on basically at home. So rather than sending them onto a class or online form of way. So I think this would be very soon come on air, and the parents will be able to get some idea about this, as well as far as I know, it is also have been inbuilt with a once a week parent education program on various different parenting skills. So I think it would be very useful. But on top of that, of course, in a very cost-effective manner, even if they get some good sand, clean it and give it to the child. Get some clay and give it to the child. These are the simple ways that the child learns new skills, because we have to make sure that child will gain their knowledge through different means from day to day. But of course, their most important is the skill development, which they would be finding it difficult to catch, because for all these activities there is a certain window of age, and if they go past that age, now we know for a child to eat properly there is a particular window, and if we pass that window, the child may not know how to properly munch the food and eat. So like that, different skills have to be gained through that different period. So the best thing what the parents could transform their own home front into a Montessori and provide these day-to-day living skills which the child would learn very quickly. Parents should not be worried about teaching them the letters of the alphabet, whether it's their mother tongue or English or second language or whatever, or the numeric skills. They will of course can catch that up very fast later in life. In a reasonable period of time afterwards. But definitely the skill development has to start, and the attitude inculcation of the good attitudes is very important. So for the best thing for that would be actually incorporating them into the society. So that is one of the most important things that the parents could do for these preschool children.
Like you said last time around, the children do miss the social interaction that they have at growing stages, in whether it's preschool or it's like getting into the school proper and going on from grade to grade as they go up. And that obviously for the last 1.5 years, our Sri Lankan children have lost out. And hopefully, like we said again last time around, we're looking forward to the reopening of schools in stages where children get back to school and to that sort of environment. Having said that, Professor, obviously now I don't think the parents have given this aspect of their growth, the growth of the children, that much thought, because everybody's in the house and parents are working online if they are working parents, and then so they are concentrating on their work. Then the children are left to their own devices. So if they're older, maybe they will handle it better. But as you said, the younger ones don't have the attention. Actually, they need my personal observation, which I've seen in a few places, despite the lockdown. I have seen this happening. So that is something that we need to, I think, make clear to the parents, to the adults, that they have to give some amount of time while they're now in the house to their children. Of course, now things are getting back to normal in Sri Lanka and they're starting to go back to work. So the opportunity, that window would be lost too.
I think you brought this discussion to a very, very important area. Because of these devices, now actually we were discussing about this new normal or whatever we connotate it, where now of course there are certain organizations are now moving towards more of the home-based workplace rather than getting down all their workers to that side. So, but unfortunately, which we also have discussed even in our university and various other fora, we don't have proper norms for this working. We don't have a proper time. Now, because the online is available, even 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the evening, there are scheduled meetings, which we did not used to have that. So we have to, first of all, I think all adults should, of course, unless there is a very, very dire emergency, should also, wherever they work, whether they work from home, whether they work on site, they should have the norms for work. They should start at work at 8 o'clock, then they should take the correct breaks, and then they should finish by 4:30 or 5 or whatever that designated time. Because this has cost actually more harm to the family than although the institutes would have been profited by not having to open the sites on one hand, and most of the people are working excessively. There may be a minor difference, but overall, as I totally agree with you, there is a little bit of disorganization from the parents' perspective of working hours or confusion in the working hours, and then dedicated time for the children. Then of course the children will also have got a bad precedence or bad example set by their parents, because they are in front of the screen devices all the time. That is their main have to do that because for the job purposes. But of course this has led many children, and to avoid them disturbing also, the child would also be given another screen device, perhaps because the children will not be like in the conventional, they are not used to the conventional toys, and sometimes there may be only one child, or there may be an older child who is busy with his education and the younger child is not. So again we are putting them in front of a screen. And what the WHO also had quite clearly seen and shown is the screen devices, the ones which make them distant from the society. And even if the children are having autistic traits, there is no other worse method where these traits could surface in these children and become into full-blown autistic behavior, because they are not interacting. They are just watching at something that is happening at the other end of the screen, and they are just responding by a laugh or a smile, but nothing beyond that. They don't get an opportunity to talk to that screen or the characters there. So my main advice is that, as you quite correctly said, parents have to have a proper timetable for their working hours, and they should have dedicated time to spend with their children. And then on the other hand, the children should not be, the screen devices should not be used as a consoling device for the child. In that sense, they should be interacted. So the parents actually now have a double role. They do have to work for their institute, but also they have to look after their parents without setting a wrong example to them. So if they can even take more frequent breaks and in between, and then try to get the child, interact with the child, and when the child is sleeping or that type of a time, to spend more with their work. That way I think that would be. So primary thing is that the parents have to organize their day, and then also make sure that the children are involved in some activity which will not harm them, especially screen devices, because the WHO guide is not to give any screen devices to children up to 5 years of age, and even to expose to them to television for about 1 to 2 hours after completion of 2 years. So all these things have to be borne in mind by parents when they are doing this, and try to get involved with the children more in an active manner, not in a passive manner. So they may have to switch off their devices or whatever, and then get involved in a more interactive manner and get the children to express themselves. Not that they are listening to a story that you are telling, but the children to come up with that and develop their skills, and especially the soft skills of speaking, interacting, sharing with the others. That type of skills have to be developed to a great extent.
Have you any case studies that you can share with us? I mean, in the course of your day-to-day work professionally, have you had situations where you come across children who have been impacted negatively?
Well, of course, there had been several cases. I mean, we have seen. One was actually primary school child who had actually in grade 2 or so, who was actually, both parents were working, and they were sort of mainly busy with their work. And as a result of that, the child was actually more focused onto a tablet device. So ultimately, he somehow or another managed to get hold of these sports, because these children are born into the technology, not like we migrated into technology. So their fingertips are very, very shrewd. They move very fast. They know what they are doing. They catch it up very well. So ultimately, he was actually addicted to a sort of a game, which parents found it very difficult for him. And he was getting restless. He was getting very angry. He was missing his meals. He was not bothered about that. So then, with ultimately great difficulty, with gradual stepping down in the hours, and parents sort of distracting him by moving out actually from home, had to get it to a control level. So there are, of course, immense number of times. I mean, we have seen what happened in old age children getting addicted, and when they are much more, become very, very hostile towards parents. And then there are so many cases who come with a lot of psychological impacts. So like that. So there are issues, and we do see them. And so the important thing is for us to prevent that happening, rather than after it happens to take evasive action is very difficult. So it is very important that we make the home environment correct. I mean, screen devices are important, but of course there should be a great discipline when using them, because they have a very high addiction power, not like any other device. So it's very important that when people are together, try to go to read a book or get some involved in some activity, something like that, where naturally the children will imitate you. And if you get yourself glued into a screen device, then again the children will also get glued onto a screen device.
As a matter of fact, Professor, there were some teachers who have had their classes conducted on a regular basis. They start at 8 o'clock and they wind up at 12 or 1, as the case may be, according to the grades they are handling. But on the other side of it is that some of these classes have got staggered. Actually, the smaller children are, I think, more into a routine, from what I have gathered. But the older children, like you said, have gone into classes late evening, night, and it shouldn't be so. There's no reason to sort of stretch these hours.
Yeah, actually that's why in many fora I also have raised this question, because we used to have 7:30 to 1:30 the classes, the school. And okay, if they had extra classes, they had it in the afternoon. But definitely almost everybody were back at home by 8 o'clock latest. Now I can't understand actually why these people are having classes at different times. Of course, one excuse is that the data cost and all. But of course, definitely for these common educational platforms, the service providers have given fair amount of concessions. So I think the damage which cannot be measured by rupees and cents is great by using this erratic. And then of course what they will say is that the parents are not policing. I mean, parents can't police an adolescent. It's very difficult. And they are very smart, as I said you. They were born into this technology. They know how to switch between screens and convert it. And then they will also have the excuse, today there will be a class, I have to wait, I don't know whether at what time is. So that's why I proposed actually some other forum also, that if the teachers could provide a timetable for the parents at the beginning of the week or beginning of the month, and if the parents know, okay, this is the time that the child is having then of course they can directly question, okay, there is no reason for you to go online and use the device. So there is actually, that's why I said everybody, every stakeholder has a great responsibility in making this, because it is not that the knowledge, it is the damage which we don't know, and we are going to an era where a damage which we have not experienced in the past, we can't gauge that. We don't know what would be the impact. And most of these children will ultimately end up in most of these games, which are again highly sort of very, very fiercely fighting that type of damage in psychology, that there is no love or care or that type of thing that is shown in there, or cultivation of good habits. So all this, the impact is, I can't imagine actually the long-term impact. So that's why I actually always wanted the schools to be reopened as early as possible. Of course, it can be done very carefully, because UNICEF also have done a good literature review recently, where the schools have not, except for I think in Israel, which did not follow the guidelines properly, schools have not been a focus of infection to develop a new cluster. So always, and there is no danger to the elderly people, I mean the teachers and the other support staff. So because in this country also, the teachers as well as all the support staff is vaccinated, and we can insist that even the school van drivers, the school support staff, any other cooks or whoever serves in their canteens are all vaccinated. Then of course getting children back onto school is not a problem, because even in this country, the three main waves which we saw in this country were not really related to a school. It was from the society it came. So the precautionary measures, if we take, and majority of people at home front is also the older people are vaccinated. So it is important that they take it forward. So the important thing is parents as well as teachers, whoever conducting these classes, have a great responsibility, and both parties have to work in conjunction and make sure that this does not spill over into a wrong area where we are going, actually we are experiencing a huge transformation in the psychological health of these children. And before COVID also we saw a lot of psychological stresses, and after COVID I actually find it hard to even imagine what this magnitude would be.
Its impact, Professor, I think from a lay perspective, would be felt in a few years, not now. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, definitely it will be. That's why I say psychologically it will. That's why I don't know what sort of a society we would experience unless we make this a nice environment. Then on the physically also, these children are going to be really ill, because they are put on weight like nothing. They are physically inactive. Now they don't have the knack to go and play out in the garden, and they have their social interaction, the soft skills are all gone. So they would be very, very in a way they would be independent, but more than that they would be very selfish group of children, because they have lost that ability. And that's my fear is actually for the primary school children, because they have never experienced what is called sharing, and even at the home front probably they would have not shared. So it is very important that we sort of get them back and open their society, which is their society, the school. So my main request to the parents is, don't fear that your child has not got a vaccination, But the other precautionary measures are the most important, and once you have taken those precautionary measures, you should not be feared to send your child to school, because the benefits are much more than the risk of sending them to school.
Professor, the topic is COVID and its impact on children. I would like your take-home message for parents.
The main important thing is we should not be scared of COVID, because for years to come we have to live with it. How we live is what matters. So we have to make sure that we take the health precautions, the guidelines what have been issued, and follow those precautions and provide the society as much as possible the children deserve. That is the school society, also the home front society, and then the extended family society. So all that, bringing that, don't be fearful of that. Vaccine is not the only solution, and vaccine will not provide all solution. So not having the vaccine is not an excuse. No, you have to be scared of that, but you have to make sure that you incorporate the child into the society, taking into account of the good health practices, and that will bring a lot of health to the children rather than damage to the child.
Thank you. And on that note, we end this very interesting discussion on COVID and its impact on children. Grateful thanks to you, Professor Pujitha Wickremasinghe, Senior Professor in Pediatrics, Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo, and Consultant Pediatrician, Lady Ridgeway Hospital. Thank you so much, Professor, for sparing your valuable time to be with us on the program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you also to Nishanta Manik-Dibele for technical assistance. I'm Fatima Razi saying good night, and hoping to catch you next Monday, same time on Views on Health.